To the comments, here we go. This is becoming like my favorite part of the day, or my favorite part of the week, is getting to read the comments because they're so fun. This is the secret ingredient to make bitter coffee taste better. Learn to brew your coffee the right way and don't buy cheap beans. Salt is not needed. So there's this trick where you can put a little bit of salt in some super bitter coffee and it'll help improve the flavor. The salt actually helps balance out the bitterness and the acidity, and it's just a little bit more pleasant to drink. If you have like bad diner coffee or bad gas station coffee, this is a trick you can use. So this comment is saying just brew better coffee. I get that. Here's the thing. There are those situations that I just mentioned that coffee's just not good. So I've used that salt trick before because people are inconsistent when they brew coffee. If you're at a diner, if you're at a cafe, if you're having breakfast, you order a coffee, it's not that good. Just try to put in, I'm talking like a little pinch. You don't need much salt here. It's not to make it salty, it doesn't taste salty. It just balances out the flavor a little bit more, so your taste buds like it a little bit more. It's not always easy to just brew a better cup of coffee. And a lot of people, I don't know if they don't know how or don't take the time to brew coffee properly, to do the proper ratios, or maybe your coffee's just not that fresh and you wanna use up what you have. That could be the issue too, you know? Not everybody has all the bells and whistles to make the best pot of coffee. How to clean your coffee maker using denture tablets. How'd you get the machine to run a full pot when the coffee filter basket is empty? I tried doing this the other day and the machine would stop after a couple drops of water. Here's the thing, most coffee pots will just run whatever water's inside of the tank. They're not really dependent on the coffee being in there. It's just how much water you've put in. What I'm guessing is happening with you, maybe there's a mechanism in there where you pour coffee grounds in there, it weights the basket down, and that's what the coffee pot is sensing, that there's, you know, some weight of coffee beans in there. So maybe what you would wanna try if you're just running this to clean it is just put something in there to weight it down. Maybe I wouldn't use something like dried rice, but maybe even dried like beans, not coffee beans, but beans, just to weight it down. Also, if your coffee, if you're not able to use this method where you run denture tablets through your coffee machine to clean it, what I would suggest is look up your model of coffee maker and see what the manufacturer suggests how to clean it. I think that probably is the best way. A lot of the techniques we use on Problem Solve are supposed to be general, universal. So this tip about putting a few denture tablets in your tank, letting that run a couple times, and then running it a couple times with clean water, that should descale it, that should get everything out, and that should really flush it out and rinse it well with clean water. If that doesn't work for your particular type of coffee maker, just go ahead and look up your manufacturer instructions of how to clean that coffee pot. Just might be missing a step. How to deodorize smelly shoes. You can use paper towels instead of coffee filters. That's true, you can use a paper towel. The thing about coffee filters is they're meant to stand up to the moisture. Once they're wet, or if there's any moisture, they won't just like tear apart super easy most of the time. A paper towel tends to be a little bit more like, once you get a drop of water on there, that thing's gonna just fall apart. That's why I use the coffee filter instead, because the paper towel's a little flimsy. What can I use other than coffee filter or tea bags? I hove none of those. What can you use instead of a coffee filter or tea bag? I hove none of those. I would actually go for a thin fabric. If you have like a thin sock, clean sock, or any kind of thin fabric, I would always go with that over like a coffee filter or something. The point of the coffee filter is it's disposable ultimately. So if you're using it to make little sachets or something, you can easily toss that away. But I would go for some cheesecloth, some muslin, or some thin fabric, or if you have, like I said, like a thin sock, that could work as well too. Any kind of thin fabric, thin material that's breathable, but non-porous, so your granules aren't like, coming out. How to repot your plants. So does the coffee filter not affect drainage? Well, no, of course, because the coffee filter is made for coffee and it's supposed to drain. So no, the coffee filter does not affect drainage if you're using a coffee filter in pots. This is what I love about like these things like coffee filters and other things. You can use them around the house, and coffee filters, you could get the biggest pack of coffee filters for like $1 and you'll have a 5-year supply of coffee filters, I feel like. I bought a pack of coffee filters and I years ago, and I still feel like I'm using them every once in a while, or finding a use for them every once in a while. And I've tried using the pot without the hole, and no matter what, I always end up with root rot. So I don't know if I can answer your question specifically. This is about, the potted plants. I put a coffee filter in the bottom to keep the dirt from coming out the drainage hole, but it still allows water to drain out. Here's my top tip for plants. I have a really cool plant shop nearby. It's I love it. They're really helpful. Just take your plant into the plant shop. If you have a local plant store, they're gonna be able to help you out. And I always like to ask somebody. There's also apps you can download where you can scan the plant and it'll give you some, but I like to connect with people. I like to, it's like taking your pet to the veterinarian. It's like, bring your sick plants. If they're not super huge, like a huge palm tree or huge whatever. If it's a small house plant and you're having trouble diagnosing what the issue is, just take it to a local plant store and they should be able to help you right out. They might even have a solution there in store that, supplement or something, help you repot it, all that kind of stuff. How to deodorize smelly shoes. Anything other than a coffee filter. I don't drink and I can't afford coffee filters, thanks. Well, back to it, I think if you go to a Dollar Tree, you could usually get a bunch of coffee filters for $1. If not, you can try a paper towel. I've done that before. There's lots of options, just thin fabric. How to fix bitter coffee. Okay, yeah. I can't believe it, but the salt in the coffee actually works. Am I the only one who didn't know this? So I'm glad it worked for you. I do it all the time. I even do my best to brew the best cup of coffee, and I get really great locally roasted beans. So I would consider myself kind of more a practiced coffee maker, and sometimes it just doesn't come out right, and I just grab a little salt, pour it in there, and then I love the cup of coffee. So it's a nice little back pocket trick to use. A little salt in the coffee, boost it right up. How do you need coffee? I need beer, LOL. Well, whatever gets you through your day. I prefer coffee. I would recommend coffee, actually. How to make iced coffee that won't get watery. Is that coffee or iced tea? Here's a common misconception, too. People think that coffee is supposed to look like motor oil. They think that coffee is this bitter, disgusting, black liquid that requires a ton of cream and sugar to tolerate. Coffee should not be that. Coffee should be delightful, flavorful, just on its own, just brewed on its own. And most coffees, when brewed correctly, are very light and very pale. It just depends on the roast and the application and like what you're drinking and how you're making it, what you're making it for. But coffee should be delicious on its own if it's the right beans, roasted the right way, prepared the right way. Now, of course, you have your store, your pre-ground traditional coffee pot beans like the Folgers and stuff. That could be a little bit different, but enjoy that however you like. But if you're doing craft artisan coffee the right way, it should not be a black sludge. It should be a delightful, kind of maybe, a little bit see-through liquid that is delicious on its own. And then amp it up with additional flavors like syrups, milk of choice and all that. And then there's espresso. That's a whole nother, the pulling shots, that's a whole nother thing. I'm traditionally a coffee maker. I don't have an espresso maker. I love espresso drinks, but I usually go to a coffee bar for that. When I'm at home, I just want a pour over coffee, a French press. I just want a cup of brewed coffee. Best drive-through coffee hacks. Won't your coffee stay hotter longer if you add the cream immediately? Not necessarily. I mean, adding cream, especially if it's cold, to any temperature is just gonna chill it down some more. I'd actually recommend if you're adding creamer, instead of coming right out of the fridge into your coffee, if you run it really, really hot, maybe let it sit off, get the chill off of it while you're making your coffee, and then it's not so cold liquid going into your hot coffee. Does it really matter? We're probably talking about a matter of a few degrees, so it really doesn't matter. I usually like to, especially if I'm doing like a big order coffee, I think this was what this was in relation to, this comment, is if you're ordering coffee, get the creamer on the side. Then you can add it later, and this is the other reason why I do it. I think this is why they brought up this comment. I think I had a tip of ask for cream on the side. They'll give it to you in a little cup. You get more coffee, I think is the hack we were trying to get to. How to get the most coffee. Of course, if they leave a little bit of room for cream, and we're talking about tablespoons of coffee, maybe like, fractions of ounces of coffee. So you're not really getting that much more. But getting cream on the side helps you control the ratio. You get a little bit more coffee, so it is what it is. You know, there's all different sorts of tips and tricks out there. How to properly grind coffee beans. Where can I find that comically large coffee cup? I don't know what coffee cup we were using. I'm sure a lot of people are like me. I have a coffee cup problem. I collect so many coffee cups. Of course it started, since I like to travel a lot, it started with getting those been there, been here. I forget the name of the series. What does Starbucks call it? Why is that title always so hard to remember? It's either been there or been here. Can never remember. Anyways, it's the location specific mugs. And since I love to travel, everywhere new I went, I would just get a new one. And just kind of mindlessly, I'd be like, oh, here's a Starbucks, gotta get my cup from this city I've never been to before. And then I finally looked in my cabinet and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got a problem. And then since I love coffee so much, friends and family always gift me coffee mugs, so I've got mugs on mugs, you know? I got a mug problem. Why has nobody mentioned the two-handle coffee cup? What to do with leftover coffee? Extra coffee, what's that? This came up too. You know, people, you're so hilarious in the comments. Great tip as usual. Anyways, people are like, leftover coffee, never had leftover coffee. I make pour over every morning, and sometimes I have 2 cups, sometimes I have 1 cup and I'm not really feeling the second cup. Sometimes I get busy and I don't get to the second cup. So I just save that for an iced coffee later, just throw it in the fridge. It's usually not the best way to keep coffee, but it's still good. I'll still drink it. I don't wanna waste it. But yeah, leftover coffee happens, right? Or sometimes you make the big pot of coffee and you just don't get to the last little bit, and sometimes that last little bit isn't even good. So, you know, find alternative uses for that. That little bit of extra coffee too is great. did a tip where you freeze it, you put it in an ice cube and freeze it, and that way, when you're chilling your coffee, you're not diluting it with water ice cubes, you're adding flavor, you're adding coffee flavor by putting coffee ice cubes in there. So that's a common solution to use up leftover coffee. How to remove hard water spots. So what works on stained coffee pots? The tip I like to use is denture tablets. So denture tablets are supposed to, get all of that coffee gunk out of your teeth or dentures or dental appliances. I use it in coffee cups, and even those stainless steel mugs, I have a Yeti stainless steel one and it gets kind of that coffee stain. Just let a few tablets sit in there. You may have to repeat it a couple times. And depending on how severe the case is, it may not be 100%, but usually over time it'll lighten it and eat through that brown coffee stain. You can also give it a little scrub with maybe some baking soda. You can try that. But the coffee stain really is just an aesthetic thing. It's not really harmful if you're, cleaning your mug properly. It just stains the metal. But yeah, in your coffee pot, try denture tablets. That's what I use for a lot of coffee cleaning. Don't drink it, be sure to rinse well, all that stuff. What's next? How to make a coffee steak rub. Oh, we did that. Do you remember doing that? Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. This is the hard thing. I just was talking about this with my team, with the Problem Solve team. I was like, we make so many videos that sometimes people will remind me of something and I'm like, I totally forgot we did that. It's a lot to keep track of. I do my best, but it is a lot of different videos, a lot of different topics, a lot of different techniques to keep track of. So let's see what they have to say. Not to hate or anything, doesn't coffee taste really awful when burnt or exposed to heat for too long? Maybe? I'm trying to think of the right response to this. Coffee is very common in the barbecue world and the culinary world to use in savory dishes, to use in cooking, dry rubs for meats and all that. And you're not using a ton of coffee. In most cases, you're just using it for a little bit of flavor as the juice and the moisture renders out of your meat. It mixes with the coffee, kind of infuses that coffee flavor. So I don't think you'll have a burnt or bitter taste. That might happen if you're using too much, but coffee, much like other seasonings and spices, it shouldn't burn just like any other spice if you're cooking properly. I have a question. Does the coffee still give you caffeine effect and the food that you used it on? So yeah, if you're caffeine, very caffeine sensitive, or caffeine's not in your lifestyle or diet or anything like that, additional caffeine, maybe just omit coffee from cooking. I'm sure if coffee is used that has caffeine in it for a recipe, there are trace amounts of caffeine. But once again, if you're using it in a recipe for cooking applications, the caffeine is so minute. Coffee's, been widely used to enhance the flavor of chocolate. It really kind of like elevates chocolate, makes chocolate taste a little bit more chocolatey, putting a little coffee in it. You don't taste the coffee and you're only putting a little bit in there, so the caffeine amount that you're adding is so negligible, it's so small. But if you're worried, if you have any reason why you don't consume caffeine or, don't want it in your diet, then I would just omit it. It's no problem, you can enjoy life without it. I can't though, I need all the coffee, all the time. It's not even for the caffeine, I just enjoy the taste of coffee so much. It's like my favorite thing in the world. Like one of my favorite things is coffee. Ew, why would you wanna eat coffee grounds? It's very popular, coffee ground, you'd be surprised. You might have even ordered something that had coffee grounds in it and you didn't know. It's used in a lot of cooking, it's used in a lot of recipes. It's a cool, interesting way to use coffee grounds in culinary applications like cooking, like grilling meats and making dry rubs and barbecue and all that kind of stuff. So try it. And if you're using coffee and cooking, you usually do a fine grind. You don't want that gritty, thick grind. It's just like spices or anything else. If the texture is fine enough, it'll just melt in and, taste the same. So your mileage may vary and, different recipes are different. I don't know exactly what that meant, but that's what I said. How to make pumpkin spice. So I did a video on how to make your own pumpkin spice. Really easy, combination of spices, cinnamon, clove, all that jazz mixed together. So yeah, you can put it in your coffee. If you make coffee spice, you can use it however you want. I actually prefer, instead of putting just sprinkling cinnamon or something directly into a coffee, I like to make either like a creamer or like a cold foam or something with the flavor in it. It just helps to have something to carry that flavor in the coffee than just like dumping some cinnamon spice or some pumpkin spice right into your coffee. I actually just got, not too long ago, a pumpkin spice honey, and I was sweetening my coffee with that because I like honey to sweeten my coffee. I usually never put sugar in it, but if I do want it a little sweet, I'll put a little touch of honey in it. And I got a pumpkin spice honey, and all it is pumpkin spice and honey like whipped together. And then I'll have a little bit of grit from the pumpkin spice in at the end, but I think it's nice. I like it. I enjoy it. Do you know how to make unsweetened coffee syrup? I love the sweet flavor Dunkin' Donuts has usually. The coconut one, I can never find anything like it in stores. Only sugar-free syrups that have a gross aftertaste. So unfortunately, to make an unsweetened coffee syrup, you need to use alternative sugars. So you'll need to find something that is more palatable to you. And I would even suggest, instead of getting those unsweetened or those fake sugar, not fake sugar, I don't want to say it like that. Instead of getting those sugar alternative pre-made syrups, maybe you can try and make your own. A lot of them can be, you use them like sugar. Just find one that fits your taste profile. So there's like monk fruit sugar, there's more digestible sugars out there. So maybe go to a specialty store. And then what I do is I just read the back. Sometimes it'll say use just like regular sugar or use in the same ratio as regular sugar. And in that case, all you can do is just dilute it in water, make a syrup that way. So see if that works out for you. But yeah, there's no real way around that aftertaste from some of the varieties of alternative sugars. You're just gonna have to find one that works for you. I would even say, instead of, I guess it still has sugar in it, but maybe try some alternatives like some maple syrup or molasses or even honey. Yes, those are sweet, yes, they're sugary, but they're gonna be a little bit better than regular sugar, than white granulated sugar. So depending on your diet, there's usually lots of options out there. And like I said, I prefer to do a DIY solution than buying a sugar-free syrup out there in the grocery store. You can probably find a way to make your own and then just enhance it with whatever flavors you want. 9 coffee mistakes you're making. I'm barely remembering that video. So yes, we're going back in time. See, I haven't done a coffee video in a long, long time, so my memory is slipping just a little bit from some of these old tips and techniques. Actually, I might need to do a refresher. Although it's very weird to sit down and watch all of my old videos. So What's everyone's favorite coffee? I am a Peet's fan. Oh, that's great. Yes, I've had Peet's a couple times. I like Peet's. I used to be really into coffee bean and tea leaf, but that's when I was in the Pacific Northwest and it was just a little bit more popular up there. I mean, I love Starbucks. Some people like make it controversial. Oh, Starbucks is not good, whatever. I'm not gonna scoff at a Starbucks. I'll have a Starbucks once a week or twice a week sometimes. But I also love local coffee. So if I'm going to a new city or a new place I've never been to before, I love to find as many cool coffee shops that I can visit and enjoy. But other than that, I just love the consistency, the reliability of a Starbucks. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of like the McDonald's of coffee, you know, the comforting everywhere where you need it. So, you know, find the coffee that's right for you. Some people love Dunkin'. What else is out there? Is Dunkin'? Is there another national coffee chain? Dunkin', Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, Starbucks. Dutch Brothers! I forgot about Dutch Brothers, although I don't think those are everywhere. They're in multiple states, but I don't think they're everywhere. Ooh, the new one, that's right. The new one is Cosmix, and I haven't tried that yet. But Cosmix is more like fruit drinks and energy drinks, and then they also do coffee. You know, I love me some gas station coffee too. You know that machine? This might be a fun thing for everybody. I have to get gas station coffee whenever I'm on a road trip. You know, if I'm driving for more than like 2 hours, I need me some gas station coffee. And my favorite thing is I'll do like the brewed coffee, like halfway up, and then I'll go to that like French vanilla cappuccino. You know that machine that's like the 4 spouts and the 4 different flavors of like some concoction that's in that machine to give you coffee. And here's my favorite part. This might be, I wanna know if any of you relate to this, let me know. So there's that coffee machine in the gas stations, and I love that noise it makes. You push the button and it's like, there's something I love about that noise. I'll go to coffee, I'll go to the gas station, put my cup underneath that spout, and I'll love that noise. As it fills me up with that French vanilla. Sugar, it's just sugar and like fake ingredients. I don't even know if there's real coffee in there. Tastes good, and it's good for a road trip. That's why I do half brewed coffee in half that machine. I don't think I could drink a whole cup of. But glad you love Peet's. What is the right grind size? How many micrometers should each piece of coffee dust be? Do you just wing it? How do you grind coffee properly? Okay, so you don't need to measure each granule. I like the way this is written. That was kind of funny. It depends. Espresso, if you're making concentrated, like a shot of espresso, usually you want a super fine grind. So most, higher end or, like more elaborate coffee grinders will have different grind settings. The basic principle is espresso is fine grind. Things like, I do pour over, so I do kind of like a medium coarse grind. What I also do is, depending on the bean I get, or the roast of bean I get, I'll play around with it. So I'll make 1 cup of coffee a little bit more fine, not super fine, but kind of like in the medium coarse range. And then I'll make that one day, and the next day I'll move it over a click and see if it tastes different, if I like it better or worse. And then depending if I like it better or worse, I might go back to the day before. I'm like, oh, I really like the way it came out. Funny enough, each roast of bean is gonna require a different grind size to get your preferred taste. And that's the funny thing about coffee too. It's all up to taste. You can make coffee 5 different ways, and one will taste really good to you, where another method is gonna taste, better to somebody else. So coffee is very subjective, and the grind size is very subjective too. I've even found in my coffee research that ratios are very subjective. So what you should learn is kind of like the basic principles and kind of play around. Coffee really is all about experimentation and then replicating the good result. So sometimes you have to get like, this one, this grind size and ratio is a little bit bitter, so let me adjust it the next time I make it. And this is exactly what good coffee shops should be doing. Most high-end coffee shops are dialing in their shots every day, are dialing in their pour over every day. Micro things, at a high coffee level, micro things can affect your coffee daily, like humidity, temperature, the age of the coffee. There's a million factors at play. So you can get to this elite level of coffee where, you know, all the details matter, or you can just have a basic cup of coffee and then just enjoy what's being brewed. I like to just sit just above that, not into the crazy realm. I just like to sit right above, like brew it, enjoy it, and then maybe tweak a factor the next day or two to see if you like it better or not. How to remove red wine stains. Will the same solution work on coffee and salsa? Most carpet stain removal solutions. I think this video we're referencing how to get specifically a red wine stain out, but any stain should react the same. Try a handful of natural solutions for your carpet cleaning. It should work the same on coffee as it does other substances. I guess there are 2 comments that ask the same thing. Will the red wine stain removing trick work on coffee? And yes, it should. And maybe I will do a how to get rid of coffee stains. That sounds like a good idea. How hyped do you think he was after tasting 1,000,000 cups of coffee while filming? I'm hype all the time, okay? I don't need coffee to make me hype. Actually, maybe it's a 2 thing. I'm hype all the time, so I drink a lot of coffee, and I drink a lot of coffee, and that makes me hype. I don't know. How does everyone like their coffee? I'm double kind of guy. I'm a double kind of guy. Is that supposed to be yeah, all I think of is In-N-Out when I hear double. But he has a little Canada flag. I love Tim Hortons. That's the other one. That's a big one. Tim Hortons. I almost forgot about that. And I didn't realize that like there's some Tim Horton in the northern part of the country. There's some Tim Horton locations. I don't have any near me, but I did like Tim Hortons. When in Canada, one must Tim Hortons. How to remove coffee stains. Oh, I did see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I guess I did a how to remove coffee stains already. But no, this was from mugs and cups. Why would you care about coffee stains in coffee mugs? It's just an aesthetic thing. And I think a lot of people think if they see stains in a mug, like it's not clean. It's clean, it's fine to drink out of. It's just an aesthetic thing. So yeah, if you do want to refresh your coffee mugs, go ahead and get the stains out. Denture tablets, try that as a first measure. Hey, show us how you use that glass carafe for coffee. Is it for brewing or just storing the coffee? So nope, I do pour over. So I have like a glass, like you may have heard of, am I saying it right? Chemex? Chemex? Anyways, mine's from Bodum. There's different brands that make them. But yes, I do pour over coffee. That's usually what I do 90% of the time. I'll do a French press every once in a while when I'm feeling the mood. But yeah, and here's what's funny. People think that pour over coffee is some special technique or specialty coffee thing. Guess what a regular coffee maker is? All it is an automatic pour over machine. It is just the grounds in a basket and a filter and hot water cascading over them. It's essentially the same thing. It's just a more manual way of doing it. And you can usually make a more custom amount. So pour over, you can make like just 1 cup of coffee. You can make, a couple cups of coffee. You're making smaller amounts of coffee. If you're doing a whole pot in like a traditional coffee maker, usually are making multiple cups. Would this work in coffee makers like Keurig? So yes, I have done a technique of using the denture tablets to clean out a Keurig. The video I've done before showed both for a coffee pot and a Keurig. Keurig, I know, or those K-cup or kind of like single serve coffee makers is the more generic way to say it. But anyway, single serve coffee makers have cleaning products of their own. So you're gonna wanna make sure you're replacing the filters. You're gonna wanna make sure you're descaling those regularly and cleaning them regularly. They have a lot more like parts and pieces, and the coffee residue, the grounds get stuck. So single serve coffee makers, you wanna make sure you're taking care of properly. There are some alternative methods, like my DIY method of using denture tablets, but you can use the cleaning products that are made and designed for them as well, and make sure you're changing all the parts and pieces that are required for regular maintenance. That's the big thing. A lot of people neglect like the filters and all that. That's needed for those. Will they remove coffee stains from my teeth? Denture tablets, yes, are designed to help with coffee stains in your teeth too. I'm a big coffee drinker, so the biggest thing you can do if you're drinking coffee regularly is try to just brush your teeth more often. Do I do that? Not necessarily, but yes, regular brushing, try to use, the whitening products that, the safe, continual whitening products and stuff. But yeah, coffee's pretty harsh when it comes to stains, so you definitely need to counteract it. How to froth milk without a frother. That was several techniques, shaking it in a jar. There's several things you can do to make froth milk without a frother. What if you just drink coffee like normal people? I don't know what that means. Drinking coffee is normal. What's the normal way to drink coffee? Because everybody enjoys things differently, so is there a normal in this world? Food for thought. How to make hot chocolate. Can you make cold coffee next? I've done cold brew videos, yep. What's the name of the tablets for the coffee maker? Just generic denture tablets if you're ever using that to clean your coffee supply. It's just generic. The cheaper the better. Denture tablets are basically all the same. I just use like the store brand ones, and usually for a few bucks you get like 90 to 100 tablets. Like it's a ton of tablets, so they'll last you a long time. But yeah, I use those for cleaning my coffee pot. I also use those for cleaning my toothbrush. So you can put your toothbrush head in some denture tablet liquid. It's a good way, just quick way to refresh your toothbrush, get the bacteria off of it, clean it up, just rinse it off and you're good to go. Toothbrush is now clean. So if you don't have dentures, denture tablets are still helpful for a few different cleaning and sanitizing applications. While we're on the topic of coffee, can you do coffee jellies? That's one thing I want to do. I do want to make some coffee jellies, so we'll see if we can make a little dessert candy coffee action. I also heard that if you want to stir sugar into coffee, you should do it back and forth motion. Yes, instead of a circular motion. It's just for the same reason. Yes, so I did a whisking technique where the best way to whisk is just to go back and forth. It actually creates the emulsifying or like the combining action better than going around, because all you're doing is making the liquid chase itself. When you're going back and forth, you're creating more resistance. So yeah, if you're stirring anything, think of just swishing back and forth. Then you're creating that resistance back and forth. Then in a round, all you're doing is just making that liquid just keep going in one direction. Stop the bleach. You don't need to murder every microbe. That's actually true. You know, you should be clean and sanitary in your home, but don't worry about like getting every single germ, bacteria out of your house. This is Earth after all. We are humans after all. Things are made to be just a little bit dirty, and it's probably to your benefit to have a little bit of, something going on in your home. I'm all about cleanliness, but I guess maybe there is a level you could overdo it, right? Thanks for everybody's comments, and maybe next time I'll enjoy a cup of coffee and read some more.